The mountains rose like jagged teeth against a sky streaked with a fading glow of twin suns. The air was thin, sharp, and heavy with dust, carrying the faint metallic tang of old battles fought on this world long before the Galactic Coalition claimed it. On a ridge overlooking a scarred valley, rows of armored soldiers prepared for another engagement, their laughter echoing off the rocks. They were a mixed attachment of species from across the stars. Towering reptilian warriors with scale-plated hides, insectoid soldiers chittering in amusement, and smooth-shelled amphibians who adjusted their rifles with casual arrogance. To them, this was routine, another exercise in flexing their dominance over a primitive people. At the center of their derision stood a solitary human. He was lean, silent, and draped in mottled camouflage that blended into the stones. His rifle rested against his shoulder, a simple, old-fashioned weapon by galactic standards. The aliens crowded around him found the sight comical. Their own armaments hummed with plasma cores and precision tracking arrays, while his weapon looked like a relic from forgotten age, wood, steel, and a scope made of glass. A reptilian soldier jabbed a clawed finger at it, laughing so hard his scaled shoulders shook. That toy is what humans bring to war. Another spat, clicking his mandibles. He'd be better off throwing rocks. At least they bounce. The human didn't respond. His eyes, pale and steady, scanned the ridges ahead as though the taunts had dissolved into nothingness. He had heard this kind of mockery before. Every alien soldier believed themselves untouchable inside their radiant shields and alloyed exosuits. They measured superiority in firepower and machinery, never in patience, never in silence. He didn't need to prove them wrong with words. The mountains would speak for him soon enough. The commander of the detachment, a broad amphibian encased in reinforced plating, stepped forward with a sneer stretching across his rubbery mouth. You humans cling to antiques. Look at him. He carries a stick with a tube on top, and you expect us to treat him as an equal? His soldiers roared with laughter, the sound ricocheting like mock applause. The commander raised his rifle, a gleaming weapon that vibrated faintly with stored energy, and pointed it toward the distant ridges. Our scanners see everything. No one can hide from us. Your kind should have stayed in the dirt where we found you. Still the sniper remained quiet, his gloved hand resting against the bolt of his rifle. His heartbeat was steady, unhurried. For every insult tossed his way, a calculation was already being drawn in his mind. Distances, angles, wind currents threading between the rocks. He could feel the planet itself, hear the subtle whistle of air funneling through canyons, smell the faint ozone where plasma had scarred the stone. To him, the world was not hostile. It was an ally, and it whispered secrets that no scanner could capture. The aliens mistook silence for weakness. They couldn't imagine that stillness was preparation. That patience was sharper than any blade. As they laughed, he adjusted his scope by the barest fraction, testing focus against a distant cliff. The glimmer of a shield shimmered on one of their forward positions, proof that their arrogance was already blinding them. Shield emitters had weak points, seams where light refracted imperfectly. They thought themselves untouchable because machines told them so. Machines, however, didn't account for instinct. Machines didn't feel the moment when wind dipped just right or when a target's breath slowed before a careless step. The reptilian who had laughed first slung his plasma rifle across his shoulder and leaned down toward the human, his yellow eyes gleaming with contempt. Tell me, little Earthman, how many of us do you think you can kill with that antique? 1, 2 before we cut you in half. He barked another laugh, joined by his comrades. The sniper finally met his gaze. His expression didn't shift, but there was something unnerving in his eyes, a kind of quiet depth that unsettled even the alien for a fraction of a second. It was the look of a predator, one who had no need to boast. Their laughter grew louder, their mockery more brazen, but to the sniper it was already fading, distant, irrelevant noise. His focus tunneled outward into the valley. He pictured his firing positions, the angles where cover melted seamlessly into shadows, the escape routes if he needed to vanish. The rifle against his shoulder was no relic. It was an extension of his body, tuned so precisely that he could feel every shift in balance. He had chosen this weapon because it whispered where there screamed. In the mountains, silence killed louder than any barrage. The alien commander waved his hand in dismissal. Enough entertainment. When the battle begins, we'll sweep this place clean. Let the human play with his toy. Maybe it will give him courage before he dies. The squad broke into another round of mocking laughter, their armor boots grinding against the stone as they prepared to move out. The sniper did not watch them. He lowered into a crouch, slid into the crevice of rock he had been eyeing since their arrival, and steadied himself. His breathing slowed to a rhythm indistinguishable from the wind sigh. The world around him sharpened. The tremor of a loose pebble under an alien boot, the faint distortion of heat shimmering above a shield emitter, the echo of distant footfalls carrying across stone. Every detail was a thread in the web he was weaving, and soon those who laughed would find themselves ensnared. A chill silence settled over the valley, broken only by the metallic shuffle of alien armor. They were too loud, too confident, too certain that dominance was written into their blood. They didn't notice how quickly the human melted into the terrain, how invisible he became once stillness swallowed him whole. They didn't realize that by mocking him, they had made themselves blind to the danger already unfolding. The sniper's finger brushed against the trigger guard, not pressing yet, only reminding himself of the moment waiting ahead. In his scope, a distant figure sharpened into clarity, the faint glow of a shield humming with false security. He adjusted for wind, for distance, for the tilt of the sun's last light against the barrel. Patience was everything. Timing was everything. The aliens, still laughing, began their march into the valley below. Their voices carried upward, jeering, mocking, calling him stone thrower and cave rat. But the sniper's focus was locked, unwavering. Each heartbeat narrowed his vision to the inevitability of the first shot. The last echo of laughter faded against the stone as he let his breathing settle. His rifle aligned perfectly with destiny. One more moment, one more heartbeat, and the silence would break. And when it did, the mockery would end forever. The shot cracked like thunder across the valley, sharp and final. For a moment, none of the galactic soldiers understood what had happened. A reptilian warrior who had been boasting the loudest froze mid-step. A neat hole punched through the visor of his helmet. He toppled backward in silence, his armored body hitting the rock with a hollow thud. Laughter evaporated. Confusion replaced arrogance. The soldiers whip around, scanning the ridges, their eyes wide with disbelief. Another heartbeat passed, then panic struck. Shouts filled the canyon, each species barking in its own tongue, overlapping commands turning into chaos. Shields up. Shields now, someone bellowed, but the second shot came before the order finished. This time a lean insectoid, its carapace gleaming with iridescence, jerked violently as a bullet shattered the joint between its neck and thorax. The body spasm collapsed and twitched before going still. Soldiers stumbled back, their composure breaking into raw fear. The commander roared above the din, trying to regain order, but his words carried less weight than the echo of gunfire. Find him. Find the human, he demanded. Drones lifted off, wings buzzing with high-frequency scans, beams of light fanning across the rocks. Yet they detected nothing. The sniper had already shifted positions, moving with a predator's instinct, leaving only silence where he had been moments before. The coalition soldiers cursed in disbelief. Their technology could detect heat signatures through walls, track bioelectric fields through meters of stone. Yet it couldn't see the ghost now stalking them. The human had learned to erase himself, to become part of the terrain. Every movement he made was deliberate, slow enough to go unnoticed by the machines they relied on so blindly. Another shot ripped through the silence, and the commander's second-in-command dropped with a hole through the side of his head. Panic spiked. Soldiers dug for cover, pressing their backs against rocks, their confidence shattered. "It's just one," an amphibian soldier shouted, voice cracking. One with a relic. Yet his voice trembled, because even as he spoke, he knew the truth. No machine, no armor, no doctrine had prepared them for this. The sniper's rhythm was relentless but measured. He did not fire rapidly. Each pull of the trigger was chosen, purposeful, aimed at the most vulnerable point. He knew their armor, knew where the seams lay, knew where alien biology bent or broke. A scale-thick reptilian skull fractured under a single bullet precisely angled. A drone operator collapsed, His chest plate cracked exactly where its power core met the plating. The sniper's world was nothing but targets, and he carved through them with unerring patience. Terror began to seep deeper than the armor could shield. Soldiers whispered among themselves, their languages filled with desperation. Some spoke of ghosts, others of demons. A word spread between them. Hunter. They had mocked his weapon, his species, his silence. Now each alien heart raced with the dreadful realization that the one they ridiculed was something far older and far deadlier than they had understood. He wasn't fighting them like soldiers. He was stalking them like prey. The commander tried again to rally his troops. We are the coalition. One human cannot break us. His voice carried over the cliffs. But even as he shouted, a crack split the air and one of his guards crumpled beside him. The commander staggered back, fury bleeding into fear. His speech faltered. His soldiers were no longer listening to him. They were listening to the silence between the gunshots, waiting for the next sound of death. In the sniper's scope, faces shifted in and out of focus, each framed against stone or shield glow. He measured breaths, accounted for the erratic gusts of wind. He adjusted with the patience of someone who understood that time was his ally. The aliens were rushing, panicking, making themselves louder, more visible. He didn't need to hurry. Each target would present itself. Each would fall when the moment was right. The battlefield that had once belonged to the coalition was no longer theirs. They had walked into a place where their superiority meant nothing. Their plasma rifles hissed as they fired blindly into the ridges, burning holes in rock, but they were shooting at shadows. Their advanced helmets pinged with alerts, but each scan only returned noise. The human wasn't a blip on their radar. He was absence itself. One insectoid soldier broke from cover, sprinting across the open ground in a desperate bid for a new position. His legs carried him fast, faster than most species could run, but speed only made him easier to track. A single bullet pierced through his back, cutting the sprint into a collapse mid-stride. The others froze at the sight, unwilling to move, paralyzed by the invisible eyes that watched them from somewhere they could not see. The sniper shifted again, sliding deeper into the rocks. His breathing stayed calm, each inhale shallow and controlled, each exhale carrying the faintest whisper of focus. He did not savor the kills, nor revel in their fear. This was simply work, the execution of training honed into instinct. The aliens had entered his arena, and in his arena there was no room for arrogance. The coalition soldiers began to fracture, some arguing to retreat, others too proud to admit defeat. The commander shouted for them to hold formation, but even as he did, another shot rang out and one more of his men fell without warning. Unity was dissolving. The once proud squad of interstellar warriors had been reduced to a cluster of trembling figures crouched behind rocks, waiting for death. They could not understand the silence. In their wars, noise was everything. The hum of engines, the roar of plasma fire, the storm of artillery. But the human had weaponized absence. He gave them nothing to react to, no sound, no trace, until the precise moment he chose to end a life. The commander's voice grew ragged with desperation. Find him. He cannot be invisible. Yet even he no longer believed it. His words shook, and his eyes darted nervously to the ridges above. The myth was already forming in his mind, that humans were not soldiers or predators, creatures born from a planet that had sharpened them against impossible odds. He remembered the quiet gaze of the sniper earlier, that unnerving stillness, and shivered despite his armor. From his vantage point, the sniper studied Commander through the scope. He could end it now, one clean shot to the throat, but patience urged restraint. Leaders were valuable when they panicked. Leaders screamed louder, ordered more frantically, made their soldiers expose themselves in desperation. The sniper waited, finger brushing the trigger, eyes never blinking. Below, the squad huddled tighter, each soldier listening for a sound they could not predict. The silence pressed heavier than the mountain itself, suffocating, relentless. Their breaths came too fast, their movements too frantic. They had walked into this valley laughing, but laughter was gone. What remained was dread, thick as smoke, wrapping around each of them until every shadow seemed a threat. The sniper's next shot would not just take another life. It would unravel the last thread of their courage. And as he steadied his aim, The question no longer lingered over whether they could find him. The only question was how many would still be alive when the Killshots ended. The valley was no longer a battlefield. It was a slaughterhouse carved into stone. Smoke curled lazily in the thin air, drifting over the jagged rocks where bodies lay twisted and broken. The echoes of laughter that had once rolled boldly from the galactic soldiers had been reduced to silence, replaced only by the faint whimper of wind. Shards of armor gleamed among the dust, the remains of soldiers who had believed themselves untouchable. Now, those who still drew breath crouched low, pressed against cover, their weapons trembling in their hands. The commander tried to steady his troops, but his words carried no conviction. "Stay in formation. He cannot hold us all off." His voice cracked at the edges, betraying the fear he fought to suppress. His soldiers glanced at him with wide, desperate eyes, their earlier arrogance shattered. For the first time since they had landed on this forsaken planet, they questioned their place at the top of the galactic chain. A single man with a rifle had reduced them to prey. High above, the sniper adjusted his scope, following their movements with cold precision. His breath was steady, controlled, unhurried. He saw not soldiers, but patterns, weaknesses waiting to reveal themselves. An insectoid crouched too close to an exposed ledge, its carapace glinting faintly in the light, one twitch away from a clean shot. An amphibian soldier clutched his rifle too tightly, fingers shaking, his head jerking side to side with panic. And always the commander, armored, proud, trying desperately to project strength, while fear gnawed at the corners of his gaze. The sniper had no illusions of grandeur. He did not imagine himself invincible or heroic. What he did was simple, inevitable. He was a hunter, honed by generations of struggle on a harsh world where survival belonged to those who mastered patience. Every movement, every calculation, every stillness was part of a ritual older than machines, older than empires. The aliens had mocked his rifle as primitive, but the truth was clear now. Simplicity was strength, and silence was the sharpest weapon of all. The coalition soldiers could not comprehend it. Their warfare was built on spectacle. Ships blotting out skies, plasma storms tearing landscapes apart, weapons that screamed their power with light and noise. But against the sniper's silence, they were deaf and blind. Every moment stretched into dread. Every breath a reminder that death might be watching through unseen crosshairs. The commander snapped. His patience dissolved into fury. He rose from cover, plasma rifle in hand, his armor boots pounding against the rock as he stormed forward. "He cannot kill us all," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the valley. "He hides because he is afraid. I will drag him into the open myself." His words rang hollow, but he forced them into the air as though sound itself could banish fear. His troops stirred uneasily, some daring to lift their heads, others shrinking further into shadows. The sniper tracked the commander through his scope, the crosshairs following the rise and fall of each step. He could have ended it with one breath, one squeeze of the trigger. The seam beneath the commander's helmet was clear, exposed in the fleeting tilt of his head. But the sniper held his fire. Killing the commander now would end the battle quickly. Letting him strut longer, letting his arrogance draw him further into the open, would unravel the last shreds of cohesion among his men. A dead leader ended the squad. A panicked leader destroyed it. The commander raised his weapon, firing wild bursts into the ridges. Plasma hissed and exploded against stone, showering sparks and molten fragments across the cliffs. The light was blinding, the noise deafening, but it struck nothing. To his soldiers, the display was meant to inspire courage. To the sniper, it was a beacon of desperation. One soldier broke. An insectoid, its carapace scorched, sprinted from cover in a frantic bid for safety. Its long legs carried it swiftly across the open ground, faster than any human could run. But speed meant nothing to patience. The sniper exhaled, squeezed the trigger, and the body folded mid-stride, tumbling into the dust with limbs twitching. The others froze, paralyzed by the certainty that movement itself meant death. The sniper shifted again, melting into the rocks. His body blended into shadow, his scent masked by dust, his heat signature absorbed by the cool stone. To the sensors of the coalition, he ceased to exist. To the soldiers' eyes, he was everywhere. Every rock might conceal him, Every silence might be the pause before the next shot. The commander shouted louder, voice ragged with anger and fear. "Human, show yourself. Face me like a warrior, not a ghost." His soldiers watched him, some clinging to his defiance, others seeing through the cracks. The silence that followed pressed against them like a weight. Then, as if in answer, the sniper fired again, not at the commander, but the weapon of an amphibian soldier crouched nearby. The bullet struck the power cell, detonating in a burst of fire that engulfed the soldier in flame. The scream that followed tore through the valley, echoing louder than the commander's defiance. The commander faltered. His steps slowed, his eyes darting nervously to the cliffs. Fury wore with dread in his expression. He wanted to believe he could win, that his armor and weapon would save him, but the truth was already gnawing at him. He was prey in another's hunting ground, and nothing in his arsenal could change that. Through the scope, the sniper saw the moment of hesitation, the crack in the alien's resolve. He adjusted for distance, accounted for the faint gust of wind curling between the rocks, and steadied his finger against the trigger. The commander shouted one last time, a cry of rage that echoed into the fading light. The rifle cracked. The commander's cry cut short, his head snapping back as the bullet tore through the seam in his armor. His body staggered, then collapsed to the ground with a metallic clang, his weapon slipping from his hands and fading into silence. The surviving soldiers broke. Whatever thread of courage had kept them rooted snapped with the fall of their leader. They fled in all directions, scrambling across the valley floor, abandoning weapons, shields, even comrades. Their retreat was frantic, a scatter of terrified figures vanishing into the distance. The sniper did not chase. He tracked them through his scope, following their retreating shapes, but he did not fire. Killing them would waste bullets. Fear would do the rest. Let them live. Let them carry the story. Across the galaxy, whispers would spread faster than any gunshot, that a single human with a relic of steel and glass had reduced a squad of the coalition to cowards. He withdrew from his perch, melting once more into the terrain. His rifle rested against his shoulder, its barrel dark and unassuming. The mountains embraced him, their silence matching his own. Behind him, the battlefield was littered with shattered pride. Ahead of him, the wilderness stretched on, vast and endless, and allied to his patience. There was no victory cry, no triumphant roar. The sniper felt none of it. This was not glory. It was inevitability. The coalition had mocked his weapon, mocked his kind, mocked the silence. Now they understood. Silence killed louder than any plasma storm. They had entered the valley laughing. They left it broken.